There are many paths to empowerment. And unfortunately, there's lots of detours along the way as well. There's lots of situations, systems, and even people that take away, or at least try to take away, our power. So the question is not whether or not we're off the path. The question is, once we're off the path, how do we get back on the path to empowerment, and how do we do so as quickly as we possibly can? How do we reclaim our power to essentially become empowered? And that's what we're talking about inside of this video training. So first, let's take a look at what does it mean to be empowered. And to understand what something is, oftentimes it's helpful to look at what something is not. So let's take a look at what is disempowerment. Disempowerment, or feeling disempowered, is when we feel, of course, powerless. We feel like we're not in control. We don't have any choices. We have an inability to act, an inability to create results, and ultimately we feel weak. Well, in contrast, obviously, when we feel empowered, we feel the opposite of that. We feel that we're powerful. We feel like we're in control, that we have lots of choices, that we're action-oriented, results-oriented. We can make decisions and we can produce the results we're looking for, and ultimately feel strong as a part of that. So it's not about the situation. You can actually be empowered in a difficult situation. You can also be disempowered in a very easy situation. So it's really not the environment, it's what we do in relation to the environment. It's the concept that it's not what happens to you that matters, it's what you do in response to what happens to you. That's essentially the idea behind empowerment. And so what I want to share with you is that we really have 3 decisions to help us find and stay on the path to empowerment. And they're decisions around focus, meaning, and decisions about our response. How are we going to respond to what happens to us? Not just what happens to us, it's what we do in response to that. So how we turn this into an action plan, if you will, to get back on the path to empowerment is turn them into a question. So what am I focusing on? What does that mean to me? And what do I want to do? Those questions will help us put us in the right framework. So what am I focusing on? What does that mean to me? And what do I want to do? Now, if you go to the first question, what am I focusing on? And you're not focusing on what you want, then we're going to ask a different question. What else can I focus on that would be more powerful? And so if you go to that first question, what am I focusing on? And you're focusing on something that's not empowering, then obviously we've got to shift the focus. That's the answer. So don't just keep focusing on it, shift the focus to something that is more empowering. If you're interpreting something that has a meaning that's actually negative, then we're going to find a different way to interpret that. And if I'm not doing anything, then I'm giving up my power in a way. What do I actually want to do? So use these as a basis to get a baseline on where you are. What am I focusing on? What is the meaning I'm assigning to this situation, this event, or even this person? And what do I want to do? That's how we become empowered. There's inherent action that has to happen. Knowing that you can do something and doing something are very different things. But as we said earlier, there are lots of detours that exist on the path to empowerment. So let's take a look at some of those detours in relation to focus and meaning. We'll come back to the response part in just a moment. Well, if you look around us, we live in the world of 24-hour news. There's lots of things. In fact, no matter what time of day you go and look at the news channel, I'm sure you can always find something that's negative. I'm sure there's always things we can focus on that have a positive connotation as well, but the news cycle itself inherently is built on negativity. Same thing with marketing. Now, marketing might not bring out negativity, but oftentimes the response or feeling we get when we are looking at marketing is a feeling of less than. There's a comparison, as if I'm not successful if I don't have what the marketers are showing me, or if I don't look a certain way, or if I don't have a certain watch or a car that means something to me. And of course, the same thing in terms of comparison also happens inside of social media. So the news, marketing, social media, the list goes on of things that are competing for our attention. And when we're giving our attention to these things, we're essentially giving away our power because they're impacting how we think and how we feel. So that's some of the detours in terms of focus and meaning. Then we can look at the exact same thing in terms of our response. So if you look at the 24-hour news cycle, you look at any one of the stories that are out there, any given part of the day, and you ask yourself, what can we do about it? What can I do about it? Quite often the answer is nothing. A lot of times, unless you're willing to do something or in a position to do something about it, unfortunately, then what happens is we're giving our power over to the media because we're letting them impact what our thoughts are, that's our focus, and even what it means to us to some degree. And then our feeling and what we can do about it is actually non-existent. So we actually are sitting in a powerless, almost weakened state. Same thing for marketing, same thing with social media. So if we can't do something about it and we're giving our energy and attention to it, we're actually giving away our power. We're actually becoming disempowered. So the path to empowerment is really about reclaiming our focus, choosing our meaning, and deciding the response that we want to have. Control your focus, change your meaning, and choose your response. That's what empowerment really is. If you're in control of your focus and you're directing what you pay attention to, energy flows where attention goes, then you are on the path to empowerment. If you're interpreting things in a way that's empowering to you by assigning it positive meaning and then turning it into choosing your response, that's also signs that you're on the path to empowerment as well. And I want to turn it back to some of the principles of Stoicism, back to the Stoic philosopher of Epictetus, because the concept of focusing on what you can control has been around for a long time. In fact, in Stoicism, it's referred to as the dichotomy of control. That is, we can focus on the things that we can control, and anything outside of that is things that we can't control. So there's a dichotomy there, things I can control or things that I can't control. But I think it'd be worthwhile for our purposes to add in a third element, which would make it a trichotomy of control. And believe it or not, yes, that actually is a thing. So the trichotomy of control looks like this. So we have a circle of all of the things that we're concerned about in our business, in life, in the economy, in the world, whatever that is. And it's different for every person based on your news, your social media, and the marketing that you pay attention to, or the books that you read. All the things that we're concerned about go inside this circle. It's a very large circle for many people. Now, inside the circle of concern is a much smaller circle called the circle of influence. And it's just what you would think it is. It's all the people and the systems and the environments that you can influence through your words, that's your communication, and your action, otherwise known as your behaviors. So it's an external influence. Now, there's also an internal influence, but we don't call that influence. We actually call that the circle of control. And that relates to three things. Now, oftentimes I ask people in trainings, what is it you can control? And people invariably say, I can control myself. I can control what I say, what I do, and things like that. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. I recently did a video on this called the performance equation. You can check that out. I'll put a link in the description below. So essentially for everyone, this is the same size. This is all the things that we have control over inside of us. It's our thinking, it's our feeling, and our behaviors. Now, where we're putting our attention, this is the focus part. Am I focusing on the things that I can control or not control? That would be the dichotomy of control, or the trichotomy. Or am I focusing on the control, influence, or am I spending a lot of time on the concern? If you're spending time on concerns over which you can neither influence nor control, then what that means is we're actually giving up our power. This is the path to disempowerment, is to focus on things that you can't control. Assign really important meaning to it, and then do nothing about it, right? That's really the problem about that. So if we can bring our focus, it all begins with that focus, bring ourselves into the inner circles, which means circle of influence, circle of control. This is the path to empowerment. So if I see something out there in the news, in social media, in marketing that I'm concerned about, and I stay focused on that, I'm giving them my power. I'm disempowering myself. But if I ask myself, okay, can I influence that world event? And I say no. Awesome. I'm going to stop focusing on that because I just shifted from that to influence, and it's a no. Can I control that world event? The answer is no. Then why would I give any extra energy and time? Now, I might want to make a decision. Okay, maybe I can't right now, but there is something I can do in my local environment. Sure, that is also part of the path to environment. So I can't do something about it now. Maybe there's something I can do in the future if I start taking action that actually is doing something, that is focusing on the control. So part of becoming empowered and the path to empowerment is walking yourself from the outer circle towards the inner circle. So something happens in your relationship, in your work, wherever it is, personally, professionally, and you ask, okay, am I concerned about it? Yes. Can I influence it? No. If I can influence it, I'm going to do that. If I can't, can I control it? Probably not. If I can't influence it, chances are I probably can't control. So we want to bring our focus back into this. Essentially, what we're talking about here is a concept called cause and effect. Life is essentially a series of causes and effects, choices and responses. So what we want to do, if you think about it, here's the reality. You can be on either side of the equation. You can be on the cause side, or you can be on the effect side. What does that mean? When you're on the effect side, you're the one who's being impacted. I know that everything we do has an effect. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about conceptually, are you in a place of empowerment or disempowerment? Are you focusing on effects? So this world thing happened, and now I'm impacted by it because I'm assigning a meaning to it, and I can't do anything about it, and I feel frustrated and I'm angry about it. That's being at effect. When we're on the cause side, we've walked back from concern to influence to control, and I'm only focusing on things that I can control and or influence. That's being at cause. I can't control what happens to me, but I can control my response to it. So if we're feeling empowered, we are on the cause side, which means I'm at cause. I am, in other words, responsible for my choices in relation to the environment. I can't control the environment, but I can definitely control my response to it. So if I'm at cause, I'm feeling responsible. If I'm at effect, hey, I didn't choose this, I'm not responsible, this happened to me. How we know if we're on the cause side or the effect side, by the way, is whether or not we have the results. If we have the results, we're on the cause side. If we don't have results and we actually have what you might refer to as excuses, then we're on the effect side. I would, but I wanted to, but there's always an excuse out there. We have to bring ourselves back to that cause side. Now, I know that there is reality. There are limitations out there, and some things are in our control and influence, and some things are out of them. So what we're really trying to do here is shift our focus back into what can I focus on? What meaning am I assigning to it? And what do I want to do in relation to it? So putting it all back, what we want to do is get to that center of control, focusing on our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors, and communicating, influencing others when necessary, when possible, and letting go all of the attachments we might have to things that are outside of the influence and control circles, letting go of all the concerns. Because we've made a decision. We're not going to put any time and energy in solving that problem, so let's direct our energies into different directions. So when you look at different topics out there like politics, now if you're in politics, your ability to control and influence things might be very different. But if you're at home, watching the sport of politics and you're getting frustrated because you're watching television and there's nothing you can do about it other than make sure that you're registered and you vote, cool. Then you're doing the thing. You're focusing on what you can control and how you can influence things. But to watch negative news and get upset about it and frustrated with how people aren't behaving the way we want to, those are things that are concerns, but we can neither influence nor control. Same thing for the economy, same thing for the community. Now, as we get to smaller and smaller playing fields, it's probably more and more likely you can do something about it. For example, your family, something you're concerned about in your family, you may not be able to control it, but you can influence it because you're a part of that family dynamic. So the questions we want to really ask ourselves to get back on that path to empowerment is, can I control this? If not, can I influence this? And if not, I'm going to pull my energy back so that I'm not giving my energy to others and I can get back onto that path to empowerment. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and please drop some comments down below. I look forward to hearing from you and hearing what kind of challenge you're going through. If there's anything to do to support you on the path to empowerment. And if you're not opposed to it, go ahead and subscribe to stay connected and ring the notification bell to join the conversation. Until next time, develop yourself, empower others, and lead by example.